Hello and hi, and thank you for joining our webinar today. My name is Bassam Al-Khaldi. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Axiad IDS. And today we're going to talk about SAFE-BioPharma credentials and how, with our Axiad ID Cloud, how can we make that process simple and easy for you to deploy, manage, and maintain. A little bit about the topics that we'll take a look at today. First, we'll look at the unique and complex challenges and needs around SAFE-BioPharma, the importance of the standard and why we want to comply with it, and how it helps our business on day-to-day. Working together through the cloud, how leveraging the cloud, a cloud solution like ours as a mechanism to provide the safe credentials, how it makes it easier and a frictionless experience for the end user. Determine the appropriate level privilege. We need to also look at, from a high-level perspective, on which user needs which type of credential to access what type of data. Then we'll walk you through kind of a demo of our frictionless experience, how to issue your token, how to get your safe credentials, and then last but not least, kind of do a high-level walkthrough on our cloud platform, what's inside it, and how does it work, and how does it connect to your environment, and how it's a plug-and-play model. And then we'll kind of sum up the presentation. If you have any questions, please go ahead in the bottom right corner. There should be a chat window. Please go ahead and write your questions, and our team will reach out to you and answer them in a timely manner. First, we wanted to talk about is the unique and complex challenge that's out there today and how SAFE could help with that. So as most of you that's joining the call today, as you know, it's very important when we're looking at bio trials or different parts of healthcare, how you need to exchange data securely, whether it's PHI data, whether it's ePCS for specific drugs and narcotics, and whether it's through EMRs. So we have to look at how can we process data and send it and make sure that it's secure through transit and through data, data at rest. So why is SAFE important, and how does it help achieve in solving this problem? So they're a nonprofit organization which now are part of the Health Information Sharing and Analysis Center. They help create standards and they help maintain compliance so that people who join the PKI bridge make sure that they only authorized people get that stamp of approval, that go through that process and prove their solution does meet the necessary requirements and security settings. So that's why it's important, because then you're assured when you receive, let's say, for example, a signed email or an encrypted document that's been signed by a SAFE-BioPharma certificate, you actually know what the security and identity proofing requirements are that goes behind it to be able to obtain such a document. A little bit about our cloud and how it plugs into SAFE. So traditionally, most deployments, when we talk about SAFE-BioPharma and credentials, you either have to go and do in-person validation, then get your credentials. The credentials might be installed in your browser, on your machine. There's a lot of process for the end user to do to obtain their credentials. What we're trying to do is really to make this as turnkey and as frictionless and as simple as possible for the user to obtain all their credentials that are required within the organization, and plus have their SAFE-BioPharma certificates on that same credential. So now that same credential can be used across a multitude of applications within your organization yourself. So if you look here, our cloud can easily plug into your environment, and now that same credential, whether it's a smart card, whether it's a USB token, whether it's a YubiKey, it contains different certificates for different needs. So we will have a certificate to authenticate internally to your domain controllers. It can have a signing and encrypting cert that's issued by SAFE-BioPharma for signing and encrypting documents or emails or trials or whatever that may be. You can also have your mobile authentication to authenticate to specific applications, whether it's web apps or cloud apps or internal apps. So now you can see the user can have a one-stop shop of getting these credentials in a really simple manner through a self-service portal rather than going to a third party to obtain each one of these credentials. They can do that themselves. And actually in today's demo, I will show you how a user can obtain a token with the different types of certificates, the regular one for authentication and the SAFE-BioPharma certificate, and as well as their mobile token so that they can meet all their authentication needs within their environment. Then once they have these tokens, really simplify, it will also demo how we can simplify the user experience on a day-to-day and make their interaction as frictionless but as secure as possible. So we'll show different things of authenticating to a single sign-on or authenticating to a PAM, a privileged access management solution. So then we can show the whole experience throughout the user's day-to-day activity. A little bit more on how do we do that and how do we converge. So first thing first, when we want to create SAFE-BioPharma certificates, as the organization itself has very strict mandates, we need to be able to securely install these certificates or issue these certificates on tokens that are FIPS 140-2 level 2. So right there, that's one of the first mandates. And then after that, what's also gives us the capability is how do we maintain the life cycle of these devices. So if a user loses their token, traditionally what they would have to do in the past, or if they don't use our solution, they'd have to go back, get re-vetted again, and then they would be able to get new credentials. In our case, it's a really simple process. They go, they mark their token as lost or stolen or damaged, and then they can issue themselves a brand new token and load their new SAFE-BioPharma credentials or certificates onto their new device or token. So you can see that the user experience is really enhanced, and now you can deploy this SAFE-BioPharma solution. Instead of a few handful of users or a few hundred users, you can really expand your program really simply in a very secure manner. So we wanted to kind of look a little bit about what are the important questions you want to ask before deploying any MFA solution for your organization. The workforce and as we've gone through the digital transformation, and now data needs to be accessed by anywhere, anytime, by different parties, whether it's your customers, whether it's your workforce, whether it's third-party contractors, and whether it's machine-to-machine interaction. This data is being accessed all the time by a variety of different sources, and we need to assess who should have access to it and what level of authentication needs to occur to be able to access it. So part of a risk analysis that we would recommend looking at is looking at what are the authentication requirements. To look at authentication requirements, you need to understand what is the risk associated to that authentication. So are they accessing something that's low level, medium, or high? And depending on that level of risk, then we need to assign the proper level of authentication that meets that risk. So for example, they might be accessing an application where just a soft token or a mobile token is good enough, or they might be accessing an application where we kind of need a hardware-based authentication, or they might be exchanging a document and it requires a SAFE-BioPharma certificate. So it's important to look at what type of authenticator is required for that application, and more importantly is how can we find a solution that can address all these needs rather than deploying 5 or 6 different products to address that use case. And that's what we've done with our solution. It allows you to tackle your privileged users, your non-privileged users, and your device, your machine-to-machine authentication, all from a single pane of glass, all from the same exact platform. So now from audit, compliance, risk, you can easily see who's authenticating from where, which authenticator is being used, whether it's your internal employees, whether it's your customers, your vendors or suppliers, and last but not least, your internal machines or servers or cloud applications. So to sum up, the bottom line is that our goal is to provide the secure level of authentication to make every digital transactional trustworthy, regardless of the source where it's coming from, a user, mobile device, or a machine, to make it as frictionless as possible and as secure as possible. We'll go through a little bit of a demo right now, and what the demo will walk you through today, it will walk you, well, what is the user experience of me logging in and creating my credential. So if we look at the use case, so here we have a user that is typically authenticating with their password to their domain, and that's what they do on a day-to-day basis. So here they're authenticated to their laptop with their standard credentials as an example. Then they go into our unified portal, and here when they authenticate, this is just one option, they're providing their AD credentials to log on. Now, of course, we support different level of authenticators, not just your ID credentials. We support, so you could authenticate through your SAML or ForgeRock or different applications like SiteMinder that could act as the IAM in front of our portal, so that the user doesn't need another way to authenticate. Or we can provide them with an activation code, kind of they could use for one time to authenticate and create their token. But in this case, for the simplicity of the demo, we're just leveraging the AD credentials to authenticate. Now, as this is the first time I'm authenticating to the portal, as you can see here, I don't have any identity devices issued to me. So let me go ahead and click Add Identity Device. And as soon as I click that, the options that I see in my screen is, one, if I have a connected device, it will automatically detect it, or I can issue myself a mobile token on my mobile device via the app, or I can actually grab a hardware token and assign it to myself. So let's go through some of the examples. So first thing first, as an example here, I have a YubiKey connected to my laptop. So the YubiKey was automatically to my PIN policy. This PIN policy is configured based on what you would like it to be. So you set up your, in the product, in our platform, you set up what you want the PIN policy to be, and the user, unless they meet the policy and they get all the green check boxes, they're not able to move to the next screen, to make it as simple as possible to the user. This is what you need to meet to get to the next screen. So once they issue their token, they go ahead and click Next. And as they click Next, everything here will happen automatically for them, and they will be able to issue their token. So sorry, let me just go back to that screen. They enter their PIN, they meet the PIN policy, click Next. It's going to ask them to touch the YubiKey. And during this process, so we're loading the authentication cert for Windows Auth or Mac or Linux. Then we're loading the signature and encryption cert for SAFE-BioPharma. Then we're also assigning the one-time password in the case of YubiKey. And we're also assigning the FIDO U2F to the user as well. So all that happens in about 20, 30 seconds, and now the token's fully issued to the user. And if you can look here, so now this is the YubiKey 4, for example. They have their certificates, they have their OTP, and they have the FIDO. You see the serial number. Here the user can click and look at the details. They can change their PIN. If they lose their device, they can go and disable it and then go get a replacement. So there's a lot of options here for the user just to self-administrate themselves. And here you can see these are the certificates, as I mentioned, Windows Auth or Smart Card Auth, and signature and encryption. Let's go ahead now, and let's say, for example, I want to enable my mobile device. So in the mobile example, pretty simple. You first go, if you have an iOS device or a Google Android device, you just need to go to the respected store, download the app, which is called Axiad ID Wallets on your phone. Once you download the app, you go back into the self-service portal, you click Mobile Wallet, click Next. Again, back to the PIN policy. This is to access the service in later or as a PIN plus the push notification if you want it, as an example. So here I enter my PIN, and then after that, it's going to show you your QR code. All you need to do is open the Axiad ID mobile wallet. It's going to ask you to capture that QR code, and it will automatically set your mobile device and set your push notification token. Once that's done, now we've just shown a very simple way where the user just self-assigned both of the tokens to themselves. That is the smart card, the OTP, the FIDO, and the mobile app in one shot. So if we go to the next screen. So now, in this example, now I'm going to log in, for example, to my to some different applications. So here I'm going to log in. Sorry, one second. So some of the use cases that we wanted to discuss. So this is a low risk. So Jessica wants to authenticate to, let's say, a cloud application or a web portal, or it could be even an application internally published by your organization. And this we've deemed as low risk. So the majority of the users can log into this with a relatively low risk. So in this context, what we want to do is provide the proper authenticator, and this one will use the simple OTP or the push notification on the mobile device. So as you can see, she's logging into ADFS, and once she's logging in, it's giving her a few options. So the couple of options that she has here is, one, she can use her mobile application. So this is going to be push, where it's going to send the notification to her mobile device. Or if she has a hardware token, she can actually type the value, the rotating digits that she sees on the screen itself, the ones that rotate every 30 seconds, and she can just type them into this field. So here in this demo, we're going to show a simple process. She's just going to say, well, I want the authentication request to come to my mobile device. So she's going to go ahead and click that. And then you're going to see right here on her mobile device in the top section, it's saying here, Axiad ID wallet. Do you want to authenticate? She clicks on it. Once Jessica clicks on it, it will show her the authentication request and some detail about the authentication itself. So it's coming from Active Directory Federal Service, ADFS. It shows her the location. It shows the user, and that's her username, Jessica Jones. And then it gives you two options, either to approve or deny this request. So to approve it, she just clicks on the green checkbox, and then once she presses and holds on it for a couple of seconds, then it will ask her to prove possession of the token, because what we want to make sure is that she is still the right user and that no one is impersonating her. So it asks her, depending on her mobile device, whether she has fingerprint, Touch ID, or Face ID enabled, or on the Android device, for example, it will ask her for her fingerprint as well. So whatever authenticator that you've enabled the device with, that's what's going to pop up to prove possession. And once she does that, she's automatically directed to the resource that she was trying to access. So hopefully we were able to show you a very simple way of how to authenticate from a low risk perspective. Now let's take a medium risk. So now we're requiring an authentication based on PKI. So we want to use the smart card functionality of the YubiKey, and let's show how simple that process is. So the first thing we want to show is, well, how would Peter interact on a day-to-day basis? So he would go, and as soon as he wants to authenticate to his Windows box, he can insert his token into the USB port, and then you can see he has sign-on options. So there's the smart card one. He can just click on that, and once he clicks on that, right away, it's native to Windows. It will read the token, and it will read the certificate that's presented on the token itself. And now it will detect that this token belongs to Peter, the certificate. So as you can see, he doesn't have to enter his username because it's automatically reading his username from the token itself. And it's asking him for the PIN. So it's something you have and something that you know. And that's why this is a step-up authentication or a more secure authentication practice. Once he enters the PIN, now he's going to authenticate to Windows, and he will have access to his desktop. Once he's inside his desktop and he wants to access other applications, he can also do the same exact authentication scheme. So it's still a secure process. For example, here he's going to a timesheet, and the timesheet is enabled by an SSO, and the SSO engine is automatically authenticating him to it. And then he has a much simpler experience, because once he's authenticating with his PKI credential, then the SSO is enabled. If he doesn't authenticate with his PKI, the SSO is disabled. Let's look at another example of him authenticating to a cloud application through a portal. And same thing here, as you can see, right away the application is PKI enabled, so it read the token that's inserted and it asked the user just to enter the PIN. So that's the option that you have as well, is you can enable your SSO, because password managers are great, but also securing access to password managers becomes extremely important. So having your SSO being capable of doing PKI authentication to it natively is a great option, because now you are securing even your password manager, so that it, from a user perspective, is really simple. All I have to remember is the PIN, a very ATM-like experience, right? I insert my card and enter my PIN at any ATM, and I'm authenticated to that ATM. This would be the simple, frictionless experience that the user would have. It would always be something that I have, my token that I insert or my smart card, and all I need to remember is my PIN. And then after that, I never have to remember a password again. I don't have to change my password every 30, 60, or 90 days. And I eliminate the password risk internally within the organization, because now I'm removing the reliance on password on authenticating, not just to the desktop, but to local applications, web browser applications internally, or third-party cloud applications that could be enabled with a SAML v2 token. So hopefully we got a chance to kind of walk you through that experience of how Peter is accessing different applications internally and doing it securely, whether it's through a single sign-on or through a PKI-enabled single sign-on. Next demo we want to show you, kind of this is a more high-risk operation, so now we want to make sure that this operation is locked down and PKI is the only authorized method for this. So here, for a good example for this is you definitely want to secure your password vault, or what's your privileged access management, your PAM. So in this case, we're looking at Wallets. Of course, we support CyberArk and other ones. Traditionally, with PAM, what you're doing is you want to do two things. One, you want to secure your password as a password vault, and then behind the scenes, your PAM is rotating passwords and changing password every time. For example, the user's checking out a password and using it to access an application. And also from a session recording and session monitoring, you want to have that from an audit trail, an audit perspective, just in case if something goes wrong. So then it's very easily to prove what happened, what was changed, and where, and who was the user that was doing this. So obviously, protecting access to this application becomes critical. So now, if we're going to use the password vault, and the only thing that's going to protect the password vault is another password, we're kind of delegating the risk down the chain to one bottleneck. So protecting your PAM with a PKI authentication with certificates and PIN is definitely the right way to go. So here, as you can see with Wallets, we have an out-of-the-box integration with them. It's very simple. As soon as you click login, it's going to ask you, for example, this user, Alice, has different certificates. She's going to log in with her admin cert, and then it's going to ask her for her PIN. As soon as she enters her PIN, clicks OK, now she has access to the application. So now she can go in, for example, and modify her passwords, or she can go to the session monitoring, and then she can click and see which session she wants to view. And even just for viewing a specific session or logging into a specific session, it's piggybacking off her PKI credentials. So as you can see, it's a much more lockdown process. And here she's just logging in to show which certificate she has in her local machine. And as you can see, that's the cert that's being used. So hopefully that was a high-level demonstration of that. But beyond that, even if you wanted to log in, for example, through RDP, through VDI, you can use the same exact, so here we're going to show through SSH, and it will still ask you for your PKI credentials so you can authenticate securely as well. The same thing can happen, like I said, through VPN, RDP, or any other VDI that supports PKI auth. You'll be able to see the same thing. For checking out passwords, exactly the same. She can still check out the password as you normally do, because this is your password vault, and then you can check it in, check it out, and every time you do that, it will ask you to authenticate using your PKI certificates to ensure that's who you are and you're the authorized person to do so. So that's what we had from the demo perspective. Wanted to kind of walk you through now on a little bit an overview about our platform itself. We talked about it from a user perspective, how it's easy for the user to use on a day-to-day basis. Now let's take a step back and look at it from an IT management and IT risk management. How does it help the organization from an operator point of view? So if you look here, we talked a lot about the bottom left and the bottom and the top left corners of it, whereas the user can have any type of authenticator they want, whether it's OTP, hardware, software, biometrics on the phone, smart cards, YubiKey. We also talked about issuing certificates to devices. So our platform also has a fully hosted, dedicated route and issuing CA for your organization. So now we can issue device certificates for your laptops, your phones, any device that accepts an X509 certificate through the SCEP protocol or through our automatic enrollment proxy, AEP. So now you can also secure transactions between machine to machine or user to machine. And then we also demoed how a user would authenticate to their OS, such as Mac or Linux or Windows, and also to different cloud applications or that are SSO enabled or PKI enabled, and through PAM, such as Wallux or CyberArk and others. But then as well, we demoed kind of how you can do it with ADFS, but you can also do it with Ping Identity, Azure AD, ForgeRock, Okta, and others that can act as your IDP. Our platform internally will be responsible of doing the enrollment for the user, the identity proofing in the SAFE-BioPharma context, managing the credential, the issuance of the credential, then the authentication, the bridge to IAM, and most importantly, managing the life cycle or what we call the credential management of the credential itself, and whether that's done by the user themselves or it's assisted by a help desk or an operator. Wanted to show you quickly, so when we issue the certificates on the token, this is kind of the trust chain for the SAFE-BioPharma. So as you can see here, we've kind of removed the name of the end user, but you can see it's trust chaining all the way back through the bridge, so that when you interact, it's very easily, as this is a public certificate, so we'd automatically recognize that this cert is valid. We talked about our platform being cloud and turnkey, but although it's cloud and turnkey, security is always at the heart of everything we do. So when we started our program, the first thing we wanted to look at is how can we move to the cloud without sacrificing security? And when we looked at cloud applications that are kind of mutually hosted or, even no matter how they try to silo them internally or multi-tenant, we believe there has to be a better way. So the way we've designed our solution is through virtual private cloud. So every entity gets their own bubble. So the software is dedicated for them, the certificate, their keys. So there's no chances of bleed over or from being hacked from one entity and then to the next, as everyone's in their own bubble. All the communication between our cloud and to the customer site is through an IPsec connection, and we don't accept traffic from elsewhere. So therefore, the traffic is coming only from this pipe, and that pipe is locked down and secure. Of course, from an SLA perspective, from security, from SOC 2 compliance, and we have it all done by third-party auditors, and we're happy to provide you with these reports as needed. Kind of to sum up on our solution a little bit, so we hope that we were able to demonstrate how our cloud connects to the bridge, how to make it simple for you to adopt moving to SAFE-BioPharma without making it complex for your end users, kind of the frictionless experience. We walked you through how having an extendable MFA solution will allow you to plug into your ecosystem to deliver that constant secure transaction, regardless whether it's a low, medium, or high risk assurance authentication scheme that you need to do, and it's all managed by one platform. Please feel free to contact us and let us know if you're interested in an in-depth demo, and kind of we can show you how it would look like from an operator view, As this is only 30 minutes, there's only so much content we can go through. We have a lot more that we'd be excited to walk you through and show you how it's easy really to meet a lot additional compliance within your organization, not just SAFE-BioPharma, but PCI, HIPAA. There's a lot of different audit requirements we can assist with just purely by having the right type of authenticator for the right type of application. Please feel free, this is my contact info. If you have any additional questions, if you would like to get to possibly a demo or proof of concept, we'd be happy to work with you and get through it. Wanted to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you join us in future webinars, I hope you have a great rest of the day. Thank you so much, and we appreciate it.